Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating, honestly kind of misunderstood dynamic that sits right at the very core of human connection. We're going to explore how to distinguish between enduring, rock-solid commitment and, well, toxic, suffocating control. This matters deeply because, let's face it, it's incredibly common to confuse the two. So many of us have found ourselves in dynamics that feel wildly passionate, only to realize later we were actually just trapped. To figure this out, we're going to use a really captivating astrological archetype as a psychological lens to untangle the whole shebang. Let's get right into it. So, it's a heavy question, right? Are you building a lasting love or a suffocating cage? Have you ever felt this absolute, overwhelming intensity in a relationship and wondered, is this true profound devotion or is it actually an unhealthy, anxious attachment? Because it is so easy to mistake intensity for affection and possession for care. When someone wants to be with you literally every single second of the day, at first it's incredibly flattering. But there's a massive difference between a partner holding your hand and a partner gripping your wrist. Today we're diving deep into how you can tell exactly which one you're dealing with.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The weight of Saturn.
We're going to look at relationships through the framework of what's called Saturn in the 7th house. Now, even if you don't follow astrology at all, stick with me here. I want you to think of this as a powerful psychological archetype. In this system, the 7th house governs our one-on-one partnerships, our most serious commitments. Saturn, on the other hand, is known as the taskmaster of the zodiac. Think about Saturn physically for a second. It's surrounded by those massive solid rings, right? Metaphorically, this is about placing thick, protective rings or boundaries around the heart. So when you put the taskmaster in the house of relationships, things stop being light and breezy. Connections become karmic, incredibly serious, and fundamentally built on discipline and responsibility. It's a dynamic where love absolutely isn't a fairy tale. It's a deliberate, calculated choice.
And the traits of this taskmaster energy, they are undeniably intense. People operating with this dynamic enforce strict boundaries before words are even spoken. They view relationships almost like contracts, where effort has to match intention 24/7. Trust isn't just blindly handed over. No way. It is carefully measured and earned. And practically speaking, this often means partners are subconsciously tested. What does that actually look like? Well, it might be picking a tiny, seemingly insignificant fight just to see if your partner will stay to resolve it, or suddenly pulling away emotionally to see if they'll chase you. It's all about delaying instant gratification for long-term stability. Now, these traits can absolutely ensure a relationship goes the distance, but let's be real, they can also feel incredibly heavy, dense, and emotionally exhausting if you're on the receiving end.
Section 2. Commitment or control. So we have to ask ourselves a vital question. Wait, is this intense commitment or is it just obsession? How do we actually separate the strict boundaries, the seriousness, and that constant psychological testing of this Saturn archetype from actual toxic, controlling behavior? Where's the line between a partner who takes your bond incredibly seriously and one who's simply obsessed with possessing you? The danger of this line blurring is huge, mainly because control loves to wear the disguise of ultimate devotion. To find out what's really going on beneath the surface, we need to shift gears from this astrological framing into some grounded behavioral psychology.
Section 3. Love versus obsession. Now, what's really interesting about this is how stark the contrast is when we break it down. Let's jump into a rapid-fire contrast between true affection and unhealthy dependency.
First up, healthy love is completely rooted in support. True love respects your personal freedom. It celebrates your individuality. If you get a killer job promotion that requires you to travel, love says, yes, go for that opportunity. I'll be cheering you on. Obsession, though, obsession is rooted in control. It genuinely fears your independence. It suffocates a partner with restrictions, essentially reacting to that exact same promotion by saying, don't take that job. I don't want you spending time away from me. Ultimately, love expands your world, while obsession actively shrinks it down until there's literally only room for them.
This huge difference in support directly impacts how things actually feel on the inside for both people. Love provides an inherent sense of security. When you're apart from your partner, there's a calm, steady trust. You feel safe, your nervous system is regulated. Obsession, on the flip side, is fueled entirely by anxiety. It needs constant, exhausting reassurance. The physical and emotional toll is immense. That tight feeling in your chest, the perpetual doubt, the suspicion that leads to snooping through phones or demanding shared locations around the clock. And that anxiety is tragic, honestly, because it actively destroys the exact intimacy it's so desperately trying to protect. Plus, we have to look at how partners actually view each other in these dynamics. Healthy love operates on mutual respect. It accepts a partner's flaws because, hey, it sees them as a beautifully complex, real human being. Obsession operates on idolization, which is incredibly dangerous. It builds this idealized, perfect mold of who you should be and then demands you fit into it. When you idolize someone, you're not actually loving them, you're loving a fantasy. And newsflash, a real human being will inevitably fall short of a fantasy. Obsession tries to forcefully change a person to fit a delusion, whereas love accepts them exactly as they are.
And this brilliantly illustrates the end result. When we step back and look at these overarching psychological patterns side by side, it's stunningly clear. Love focuses on shared growth, it seeks harmony during conflict, and it leads to true emotional peace and longevity. Obsession, it seeks possession, thrives on dramatic conflict, holds deep resentments, and just results in total inner chaos. But here's the ultimate irony. Despite its fiery intensity, obsession almost always leads to fading interest. Why? Because our brain simply cannot sustain that level of hypervigilant anxiety forever. Once that initial anxiety-driven excitement burns out, the obsessive partner usually loses interest, leaving a wake of emotional destruction. True love, meanwhile, has the slow-burning fuel to last a lifetime.
Section 4. Navigating emotional walls.
So if we inherently know what healthy love looks like, why do so many of us still fall into these heavier, restrictive patterns? Well, this brings us to the shadow side of our dynamic. When a serious, disciplined approach to relationships becomes driven by fear rather than genuine connection, thick emotional walls go up. This looks like a deep, paralyzing fear of intimacy, an absolute terror of being truly seen. It leads to over-testing partners to the point of complete exhaustion. Imagine feeling like you're constantly on trial in your own relationship, day after day, always having to prove your worth. The person building the wall feels vulnerability is just too dangerous. Eventually, for both people, the relationship hits a brick wall and feels like nothing more than a burdensome obligation.
Let's move to and see how this builds into actionable steps. If you recognize those thick emotional walls in yourself or your relationship, there is a clear psychological roadmap for healing. First, you've got to actively work to soften those emotional defenses. Acknowledge that they're keeping love out just as much as they're keeping pain away. Second, engage in some deep self-reflection or therapy to figure out exactly where that fear of vulnerability comes from. And third, maybe most importantly, practice actually receiving love. People with this heavy taskmaster energy are usually amazing at the logistics of a relationship. They'll plan the dates, pay the bills, fix the house, but they are often terrible at simply letting themselves be loved. Why? Because working feels like control. Receiving requires surrender. Learning to just sit there and let someone care for you without having to earn it, that is a real game changer.
Section 5. Building lasting love.
When you can actually do that hard psychological work, when you can clear away the anxiety and that desperate need for control, the ultimate reward is truly profound. What you're left with is a relationship with incredibly deep roots in mutual respect. You trade in the exhausting roller coaster for a quiet, unshakable confidence. You gain a stability that far outlasts fleeting, dramatic excitement. You develop a patience that teaches absolute, unwavering trust. You end up with a bond that doesn't just look good on a sunny day, but one that has the grit to survive all of life's inevitable highs and lows. It's the kind of love that quietly holds your hand through a devastating job loss or a family crisis, steady as a rock.
So the crucial point is exactly what this quote captures. When you choose real love, steady, kind, and freeing, you create a bond that uplifts rather than confines. True commitment was never about trapping someone. It was never about testing them until they break, or gripping them so tightly they can't breathe. No way. It's a deliberate daily choice to offer a safe, wildly supportive space where both people can thrive and grow as individuals together.
Take a moment to look at your own relationships and ask yourself, are the rules and boundaries you've set up creating a strong, secure foundation for mutual growth? Or are they just a heavy, impenetrable wall you've built to protect yourself against the terrifying beauty of being truly vulnerable? It's a question worth answering. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.